This mini-lecture introduces kinetic molecular theory and helps explain the molecular nature of the relationships between pressure, volume, temperature, and the moles of a gas. The fundamental gas laws introduced in an earlier mini-lecture are considered empirical relationships, as they were based on experimental observations of gases on the macroscopic scale. The fundamental gas laws and the ideal gas law can tell us what happens to an ideal gas under certain conditions, but on their own they don't explain why these relationships exist. Kinetic molecular theory represents the why. It gives a molecular level model approach to explaining ideal gases while still allowing us to predict the same macroscopic behavior that was observed by the early chemists. There are several postulates of kinetic molecular theory. Beginning with the first, which may look familiar as one of the assumptions of the ideal gas law, it's the idea that gas particles have essentially no volume because they are so small compared to the space that typically exists between gas particles, so that the volume of the individual particles is negligible compared to the volume that the particles occupy under most conditions. Next, another statement that should be familiar from the ideal gas law assumptions, the idea that gas particles neither attract nor repel each other, or basically don't exert forces on each other. Gas particles are also expected by kinetic molecular theory to be in constant random motion at temperatures above absolute zero, or 0 Kelvin, and they move in random directions and with various speeds, which we'll get to at the end of this lecture. The motion of the particles is directly related to the average kinetic energy available to the molecules based on the temperature of the gas, with kinetic energy being directly proportional to the temperature. So as the temperature increases, the kinetic energy increases, and therefore the motion of the gas increases. Instead of assuming that gas particles don't interact at all, as we did with the ideal gas assumptions, kinetic molecular theory suggests that gas particles will still collide with each other and, more importantly, with the container walls, and that these collisions are the cause of the pressure exerted by the gas. However, collisions between particles are considered to be elastic, which means that the kinetic energy of the particles can be exchanged within the collision, but there's no net loss of kinetic energy. So basically, the total kinetic energy before the collision has to be the same as the total kinetic energy after the collision. This is also kind of related to the statement that particles don't repel or attract each other, as that would potentially affect the kinetic energy transfer. Finally, if you want to play around with a nifty gas molecule simulation and see how the motion changes when you change various conditions, you should check out the link below. Now, the main 2 points I try to focus on from kinetic molecular theory involve the way in which we want to think about temperature and pressure from a molecular perspective. Gas pressure arises from the molecules banging into the container walls, and temperature dictates the kinetic energy of the gas molecules, or basically the speed at which they are moving. If we keep these 2 basic concepts in mind, then we want to consider how the collisions with the container walls and the speed of the molecules will be affected when we change various conditions of the gas molecules themselves. Let's start with Boyle's law, where the number of moles of gas and the temperature are held constant and the relationship between pressure and volume is examined. Previously, the relationship between these two was determined based on experiments, but now we can reason out this relationship by considering what is happening to pressure when we change volume. A decrease in the volume of the gas while keeping temperature and the number of moles of gas constant will cause the gas molecules to collide with the container walls more frequently, and more collisions means more pressure, so as volume decreases, pressure increases. This confirms the inverse correlation between the two. Now we're going to do this for the rest of the fundamental gas laws, but just keep in mind that we're focusing on trying to reason out how 2 variables are related to each other, given that the other 2 should be held constant. So in each one of these situations, keep that in mind. Now for Amonton's or Gay-Lussac's law, the number of moles of gas and volume are held constant, and therefore the relationship between the pressure and the temperature is what we're examining. And again, previously this relationship was determined from an experiment, but we can now reason this out considering what happens to pressure when the temperature is increased. Now, an increase in temperature would give more kinetic energy to the gas molecules, which would increase their velocity. So now the gas molecules are going to collide with the container walls with greater force, which increases the pressure. And they'll also collide with more frequency, which also increases the pressure. For Charles' law, the number of moles of gas and the pressure are held constant, and the relationship between temperature and volume is examined. And again, we can reason out the experimental observations by considering what happens to volume when the temperature is increased. As we just saw with the last relationship, an increase in temperature gives more kinetic energy to the gas molecules, increasing their velocity, and the gas molecules then collide with the container walls with greater force and frequency. But in this situation, if the pressure is to be held constant, then the volume must expand to offset that greater force and frequency of the collisions from the increased particle speeds. So you can kind of think about this as though the pressure initially starts to increase, but because the volume is allowed to expand, that pressure does the work of basically expanding the volume. And so by the time we get to the end, the pressure is still the same as it was at the beginning, but our volume has now expanded a lot. For Avogadro's law, the temperature and the pressure are held constant and the relationship between volume and the moles of gas is examined. And again, we can reason this out, or reason out the experimental observations by considering what's happening to the pressure when the number of gas particles increases. This is also very similar to the last case because as we go to more gas particles, the gas molecules now collide with the container walls with more frequency. So they're not moving faster, so there's not more force with the collisions, but because there's more of them, they should hit the container walls more frequently, kind of similar to what happens when we increase temperature. So again, initially this would cause an increase in pressure if we were holding the volume constant. But if the pressure is what needs to be held constant, then that extra frequency of the collisions is going to cause the volume to expand to offset that greater frequency of collisions and the increased number of particles. And so by the end of this, we should see a greater volume, but still have the pressure being held the same as the beginning. We can also explain Dalton's law with kinetic molecular theory by noting that in kinetic molecular theory, we assume that all gas particles are independent of each other and that particle volumes are negligible. So this really cuts to the chase of the identity of the gases in a mixture not really mattering when it comes to determining pressure. And the take-home point here is that when you're dealing with pressure in a mixture, so the total pressure, only the number of gas particles matters, not the nature of the gases. So it doesn't matter what type of gases you have. All that matters is how many total particles of gas you have. Now, we're going to get into some tricky stuff with math here, and I want to just highlight the fact that the take-home point on this slide is really going to be this final equation that we're going to end up down here. And also, we're not really even going to be using this equation in class this semester. I really just want you to recognize how this term out here is affected by temperature and by molar mass. And so we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the end of this. But for those of you that are maybe a little bit more mathematically equipped or, have a good foundation in physics, you might get something out of this. So I'm just going to describe a couple things here. Basically, the relationship between average kinetic energy of a gas molecule and the temperature of the gas molecule is pretty complex, but we can explain it with a few key equations that are derived from a mathematical model for the motion of a gas particle within a box. Now, I'm not going to show that full derivation here, but we're going to highlight a few key points or a few key relationships. One of them is that the pressure times the volume over the number of moles is actually equal to 2/3 of the average kinetic energy. And we know from the ideal gas law that the pressure times the volume over the number of moles is also equal to R times T. So if we take these two things that are both equal to PV over N, we basically get this expression that says that the average kinetic energy of a gas is going to be equal to 3/2 R times T. And this means that the average kinetic energy can simply be expressed in terms of the ideal gas constant and the temperature, and we can clearly see from this that the average kinetic energy is directly correlated with the temperature. So as temperature increases, we expect the average kinetic energy to increase. Now, this mathematical model also gives the average kinetic energy of a mole of a gas in terms of Avogadro's number, the mass, and the speed of one molecule of a gas. U here is being used for velocity, and you'll notice that that velocity is squared here because this is an energy term. So velocity squared is usually a term we see in kinetic energy. Now, from this expression, if we recall that the mass of one molecule times Avogadro's number really just gives us the molar mass, then we can see here that those two terms are present in this equation. And so if we recognize now that the average kinetic energy is equal to 3/2 RT, and it's also equal to this kind of nasty expression, and we substitute in molar mass for the mass and the Avogadro's number term, and we do a little bit of rearranging here, and we take the square root, we eventually get to this final equation, which is giving us something called the root mean square velocity of the gas molecules. And that is basically this URMS term. This is the speed of a molecule with the average molecular kinetic energy of the entire sample. And we can see clearly from this equation that it's dependent on both the temperature and on the molar mass of the gas. Now, before we move on to specifically talking about that relationship, let me also point out here that if you were going to solve for this value, the constant you would plug in for R, for the ideal gas constant, should actually be the Joule's version of this constant and not the gas law's version. But I'm not going to ask you guys to solve for this semester, so we just want to focus on the relationships here. Now, for those relationships, we have to discuss this Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution curve. In a sample with many gas molecules, not all have the same speed, and the distribution of molecular speeds follows this Maxwell-Boltzmann curve, which is really just a probability distribution describing the speeds of various particles within a stationary container at a specific temperature. So on this curve, note that some molecules can be completely stationary, with speeds equal to 0, and some molecules can move incredibly fast. But the majority of the molecules fall at this maximum point on the curve, which gives the most probable speed, or UM. The average speed, U average, is shifted a bit to the right of the most probable speed because the distribution is not perfectly Gaussian, which means that it has a longer tail at these higher speeds. And so that shifts the average slightly higher than the maximum. Now, the root mean square speed, URMS, or velocity, is shifted a bit to the right of the average speed because it represents the speed of a molecule with average molecular kinetic energy, which just happens to be a bit mathematically different from the average speed. Again, the two main points to take from this equation are simply that, one, a higher temperature gives a higher kinetic energy for the molecules and therefore a higher root mean square speed. And we can tell that because it's on the top of this fraction here. So as T goes up, as this increases, we expect the root mean square speed to increase. And two, a higher molar mass actually gives a lower root mean square speed because more kinetic energy is needed for larger molecules to move at higher speeds. And we can get that from the fact that the molar mass is in the denominator of this ratio. So as molar mass gets larger, we actually expect this term to get smaller. Now, to bring this all together, in the case of a graph that shows different distributions of molecular speeds, we can label the distribution curves based on differences in temperature, with higher temperatures giving broader distributions with a maximum at higher speeds, and lower temperatures giving tighter distributions with a maximum at lower speeds. Or we can label a graph based on differences in molar mass, with larger molecules giving tighter distributions with a maximum at lower speeds, and smaller molecules giving broader distributions with a maximum at higher speeds. So again, labeling graphs like this and recognizing this relationship between temperature, molar mass, and the speed of the molecules is really all we're trying to get at here. So this concludes the 5th mini lecture for material from chapter 11. Please note any questions you may have about this material and how it is utilized to solve problems in the suggested end of chapter exercises and the sapling homework for this chapter. Please post any urgent questions on Piazza. I will also take questions on this material during one of our required class meetings, and during that time we will focus more on problem solving for concepts in this chapter.